I want to welcome every one of you to the Digital Hospitality podcast. Those that are listening in the replay mode, we jump on LinkedIn every Wednesday and Friday to have these amazing conversations with fascinating people. And what I love about it is so many of the people on this call are solopreneurs or they are working remotely, and so we kind of use this as our time to bounce ideas off each other, but also hear from industry leaders about how they're tackling problems, maybe some of the innovations that they're doing, and even getting into some of the deeper conversations of philosophical life and such. And so we have a great time here. But one way that we love to kick off this space is to practice introducing ourselves and practice telling what we do and how we help people. And so, Stover, I would love to hand it over to you to introduce yourself and also to tell us maybe what you've been working on this week. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Stover. I'm executive producer with Cali BBQ Media. I work closely with Sean and all of our leaders here and our expanding team to tell the industry and the world about smartphone storytelling. It's really simple. The premise is that you can tell your story now. You don't have to wait for the press. You don't have to hire a big media team. You have the tools in your pocket, but there are some tricks and tips to use it easier. And like we always say, a rising tide lifts all ships, and we are all here to help each other rise together. Thanks again, Elizabeth, for hosting. I'm really excited for this room. And don't forget to share this, everyone, whether you're listening on replay, on the podcast feed, or live. Every time you share it is just one more chance for a new person to join our community. So thanks again.
Exactly. Dean, I'd love to hand it over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dean LeBay, LA-B-A-Y. I'm in New Orleans. I'm in the restaurant equipment smallware business, and basically, I'm here to learn and listen. And what do? I sell restaurant equipment and smallwares. Why do I do it? I do it because I try to help keep independent and small, medium businesses doors open. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dean. And I know, guys, make sure you're following Dean because you won't find a bigger cheerleader than this man right here who is constantly championing anything that anyone in this room is doing. And what I love is he's out there evangelizing and sending people our direction for maybe help and other things that they might find. So please make sure that you follow Dean. You won't regret it. Jordan, I'm so thankful that you joined us today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, Jordan, CEO and co-founder of Starfish here. We use AI to help restaurants and bookkeepers automate their P&L analysis. Elizabeth, my main goal for today is just to listen to how you host. I am guest hosting Friday. Transparently, I was hoping it was gonna be like a total noob like me hosting today, so I could just do better than them, but I'm afraid you're gonna set the bar very high. So that's my main goal for today and being here is just try to learn from you so I can do 40% as good a job.
You should have heard me in the pre-live though. I'm like, okay, Dean's over there just trying to beef up my courage, and Richard's sending me DMs. So like anyway, we're gonna make it through this together, I promise. But I'm so with you, Jordan, on figuring it out. But I'm excited about Friday. So guys, make sure you tune in Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, because Jordan always brings such wisdom and like in these concise packages. And so I can only imagine what the room with him is going to be like on Friday. So I want to hand things over to Richard. Man, Richard, your post today, your article on LinkedIn, I was even seeing it in the context of some of where we're going today. So I may even direct some of my questions, but welcome to the stage. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Richard. I own a business called Richard Solutions. I'm based in the UK, but work globally as a coach, business mentor, business consultant, and branding expert. And my speciality is teaching Americans how to pronounce tomato and aluminium.
We spent a lot of our days doing that when we were in the UK with you. Yes, I've got to work on my King's English. Yep.
That reminds me of an old Simpsons joke where someone goes up to a guy and he says, "Hey, you got a car in your garage there?" And he goes, "Garage? What are you, fancy? What are you, from France?" And he goes, he goes, "What do you call it? It's not a garage, it's a car hole."
Exactly. Oh, it's like, that's great. Mandy, I'm so glad that you could join us today. I know Fridays are normally your day, but I am super excited that you're going to be here for this conversation, because I can only imagine all the things that you're going to have to share. So anyway, I would love to hand it over to you, Mandy Graziano.
Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Stover Carhole might be my new thing. I call jerks instead of a-holes. Carholes. Thank you for that. And Jordan, Friday, you're going to crush it. Guesting, hosting, all that is awesome. And I can't wait to hear what you do on Friday. My name is Mandy Graziano. I am an author of a super funny business book called Sales Tales, The Hustle, Humor, and Lessons from a Life in Sales. And I run a sales training company for the hospitality industry where I coach people one-on-one or group sales teams to be more memorable in the marketplace and to have more fun with follow-up and overall just speed the close and improve overall sales processes. So anytime somebody says anything about talking about a bright spot is totally my jam. So Elizabeth, I'm excited to be here today and can't wait to participate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mandy. Excited that you are here. And I'm so sorry, I may pronounce your first name wrong, but Mr. Garcia, if you would like to tell me how to say your name, welcome to the stage.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's Jaheem. You can call me Jay. From Puerto Rico. I currently work for Superhuman Prospecting as their new business development rep. We have a team of full US based cold callers and help companies with generating new business opportunities and doing that top part of the sales funnel.
That's great. We're so glad you've joined us today. Is this this may not be your first time in the room, but is this your first time joining us?
It actually is the first time. I just got a notification. I believe I was following Dean LeBay. So
Yep.
shout out to Dean.
I was wondering where the
Yeah.
referral was going to come from. I was like holding my fingers crossed. I was like, oh, I hope it was mine.
Well, we are so glad that you're here with us today. And usually the format of the room is this time of introduction, and then we have a prompt and then everybody goes around the room and shares their take or their story that goes along with it. And then at the end of this hour, we will each share a tip, takeaway, or homework assignment. So I would just want to kind of give you a heads up that may be where we're headed in just a little bit. So, and I'll give us the prompt in just a minute, but I want to hand things over to Marissa. I'm so excited that you are present with us from Be Present LLC. Marissa, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Liz. Glad to see you here as a host, and hi to all the regulars. My name is Marissa Callie. I'm a marketing consultant that specializes in virtual events. We take the guesswork out of event production so you can be present for the conversations that matter. I do everything from virtual events, webinars, podcast training series, and it really leverages all of your businesses to be present online and also using AI to spend more time with your family. So I am here. Thank you for having me, Liz, and look forward to today's conversation.
Yes, thank you so much, Marissa. And Dita Rule, I'd love to welcome you to introduce yourself to the room.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much our host. And this is Didarul Islam. I am a professional website developer, e-commerce expert as well. I worked in the freelancing role almost 4 years. I help people to grow their business in the online. Like I build e-commerce businesses, online product launches, new product launches, landing page design. Also, I help people to grow in the social media, the people. I'm new in the LinkedIn, so I'm new in this room. So this is my short introduction. I think that's enough for now.
Oh, we're so glad that you found this space, and because this room is full of people that are doing their best to show up on LinkedIn authentically and inviting people to be a part of their story. So I think that you're going to have a lot of fun following along with a lot of the people in here. And I do highly recommend that people go around and if you'll touch each other's faces in the mobile app, you can click the follow button and start to see how people are showing up here on LinkedIn. And I did see that we were joined by the wonder, the one himself, Jason Berkowitz. Would you mind introducing yourself to the room today?
Make sure you touch everyone's faces. It's fantastic to see where they are. Thank you.
That's a
Great to be
lawsuit
here.
waiting to happen.
Especially with Richard on. Jason Berkowitz, longtime restaurant operator, partner, founder of Arrow Up Training. We help restaurants develop supervisors into leaders, and currently working on, we help them develop into California compliant leaders with these great regulations and rules and reforms that California's put into place. Back to you. Excited to be here. Excited for today's topic.
Yes, thank you. And I did want to continue to invite anyone down below. Some of you may be in listen mode only, but if you'd like to join us on stage, just hit that little raise your hand button on the bottom right-hand corner, and you can come on stage and introduce yourself. Tell us what you're working on this week, because the more people we have on the stage, the more we get to have that circulation of philosophies, mindsets, and maybe even some solutions that are unexpected. So I want to thank Chris Berryman for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself today?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today on Wonderful Wednesday?
Doing great.
Well, I am so humbled and honored to be here because I just got the notification that Dean is going to be here today. And Dean, thank you so much for being here today. Listen, I am the coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. We're dead set on bringing humanity together, one conversation at a time, one moment at a time, or even that one opportunity at a time, when we just show up and lead with our humanity every day in every way. Because we see the need to change the look and the dynamic of how humanity is looked upon, not only in the workplace today, but beyond the workplace, through the principles of leadership, human development, health and wellness, family, community, and values, and even encouragement in and of itself. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm so humbled and honored to be here with you guys, because I truly want to be here in the place not only of listening, but of one of learning. And maybe I can lead myself, or maybe even lead others, when I can just be here, learn to grow, and not only grow to thrive, but thrive to help others rise and get them to where they want to go. Because I love even the title of Rising Tide LinkedIn Live. So we help others rise, we will rise with them. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Dean, for sharing. Dean is bringing in the people today. That's awesome. I love
We
it.
need a bell when someone brings in a new member. They can ring the bell. Ding, ding, ding.
Real quick, I'm assuming everyone already rang the Richard birthday bell from. Did we ring that? So
I mean,
I know day after, but
you're our
happy birthday,
leader
Richard.
for songs and chants and slogans. So yeah.
We're not singing anything, but insert candle emoji for you there, Richard. We're excited.
Hey, Richard.
Another year around the sun to be with you.
Hey, Richard, I hope the lads win for you today, and me, selfishly.
Go Gunners. So welcome everyone to this wonderful conversation. So I was trying to figure out how to frame this so that if people joined in a little bit later, because I know talking about a specific can sometimes get crazy. But anyway, today's topic is going to be about bright spots. And I have a story to tell that will explain this better, but to help you with the prompt, it's this idea of finding examples, whether it's in your life or in your business, of things that are working well. It might be an employee that's doing something really well that you might want to lean into and harness and amplify. It might be something in your own personal life that you're like, oh wow, that actually worked. Maybe I should try that again. Maybe it's on your social media. You put out a certain type of post and it actually performed well. How could you dissect it and figure out what are the parts of this that I can reuse? So today is about finding bright spots, sometimes that are happening in difficult times, to say, how can I use this to increase positive change? And we do ask everybody, and I'm not looking at my phone, so I don't know who this is, but if your mic is unmuted, try to stay muted during other people's shares so we don't get any background noise. There's a mute button in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can toggle that on and off. And just check it periodically just so we are covered. I don't want to accidentally hear you yelling at your dog or something more embarrassing than that. Is there something more embarrassing than yelling at your dog? But anyway, okay. So
Flushing.
I was we are in Indiana. I'm from South Carolina, but we're in Indianapolis, coming alongside some of our friends in helping them with some events that they've been doing in the last couple of days. But last night we were all in kind of debrief mode from this big event this last weekend that was successful, by the way. It was super great. I've told you guys a little bit that it was a community event where I came up here to paint faces, and I know my dad was like, why are you driving 8.5 hours to go paint faces? Well, I sat in the seat at 5:30 p.m. and did not get up till 9:30 p.m. and I was painting faces constantly for 4 hours straight. And but like the response from it and from the other things that were going on, it was just beautiful. And there's already some positive feedback from the community. So it was a free event that we put on. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, but I was walking with my friends last night, and we were talking about leading change in organizations, in ministries that we're doing, and maybe even in your businesses. How can you lead change? And my friend Taylor, who is I love listening to him speak. He's an amazing speaker, and he just can open up ideas and concepts in ways that I just loved getting to be with them. But he said, he had been reading this book called Switch, and it's about how to make change in a world where change is hard. And I've been digging into it in the last couple of days, and it gives a lot of scientific research, like lab type stuff, anyway, where they are telling these stories. There's lots of stories in it, which we love a good story. But he told this story, and so this is my context for finding bright spots. In 1990, there was a man named Jerry Sternin who was working for Save the Children, a nonprofit, and he was sent to Vietnam to help with a malnutrition epidemic that they were seeing in that area. And so he was studying malnutrition and trying to look at the root causes of it. And it's often a result of poor sanitation, of poverty, of lack of clean water, of ignorance around nutrition. But he he was looking at that. They gave him 6 months to figure out how to solve malnutrition in Vietnam, which is okay, Jerry, you got this. And so he said, having all these facts about what causes malnutrition, he called him TBU, true but useless. He's like, okay, I don't have time to fix poverty in the amount of time that it's going to take from the villages to go around the village and measure the children, as far as height, health, weight. Like, they were getting these metrics about these kids, and he brought them back, and he began anyone who is very, very poor, who is healthy. And they were like, cop, 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 which means yes, we have some that they were the poorest kids, yet they were eating the best. And what he said, we need to go talk to these mothers that are taking care of these children without resources, and what are they doing there? And so they went to these moms, and they were able to pull some very specific things that these mothers were doing. Most mothers were only feeding their children twice a day, these bigger meals, but the mothers whose children were healthier, they were actually doing the same amount of food but in 4 smaller meals. They were also giving the kids things that normally kids didn't need. They were reserved for the adults, whether it was like leaves from the sweet potato plant, whether it was some shrimp and crab they would find in and around. They were supplying this. And so they started doing this, but this man began to teach mothers in the community how to prepare dishes in this way and how to feed their children in this way. And it exploded. And like there's statistics and wonderful results about how this, but he called those children that were they made sure that there was no extenuating circumstances where they have a rich uncle that's sending them stuff. They were trying to find the ones that had this access to the same amounts and that thing, but there were these bright spots of these children who were not malnourished. And so instead of trying to bring in his Western understanding of it, he dove in with the people and learned about how certain people were succeeding, and then he harnessed that idea and amplified it. So my question today for us is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just your story, you could access stories from other brands or other things that you know of, where an idea was fostered, a bright spot happened, and the company or the organization said, actually, that's a really great idea. How can we amplify this properly? There's some other businesses that have done this too. I'll just give a couple in case it sparks ideas. Starbucks, there was a barista that was doing amazing latte art. And when Starbucks found out about it, they began to highlight the creativity of their workers and do that. Target, there was a young man that worked at a Target who was a larger individual, but he started modeling the clothes himself. And when Target found out about it, they not only highlighted him, but they made sure that their advertisements from that point on included more diversity and size and in other ways. And so how are brands paying attention and finding bright spots and harnessing them? But then there's the case of like Chick-fil-A right now. There's this young lady who was doing like reviews of her Chick-fil-A food. She got over 50,000 followers. She had millions of views, but Chick-fil-A like reached out to her and said, actually, you're breaking protocol for HR type stuff, where they could have reached out and harnessed that and made her a bright spot as a part of it, but instead they shut it down. And so now she's working for other brands because she has the following. And so she's, and she's even comparing chicken sandwiches, which I think is hilarious. Like, but she still loves Chick-fil-A, and she understood why they did what they did, and she did it with such grace. It made people love her even more. But they missed an opportunity that they could have harnessing on with them. Okay, so I hope I'm making sense in it. So Stover, if you're willing to share, I would love to hear from you. Sometimes it takes him a minute to get. There you go.
Sorry, I'm doing dad stuff right this second, but I'll pop in a second if you can move on.
Yeah, totally. So Jason Berkowitz, you're next on my list. Would you be available to share a story?
Hi, you've got me thinking. I was actually prepared with a different story about how I moved through adversity with something that turned into a protocol. I'm going to stick with that story, the original one, because I think it's something that's somewhat relatable with us. I love what you're talking about. And a quick one to answer yours, but less of a story, is when I figured out that if you just greet employees at the door day one of their training, you reduce turnover by upwards of 30%. Now, that's not an interesting story. A quick and interesting story is during the pandemic, we decided that we were going to lean into technology as a content company because the city of Santa Monica needed help certifying businesses for COVID assurance. I was like, we can do it. We partnered with a tech company. We started to put this together. We then started to run into real problems because our tech partners were just dropping the ball. No one cares about my tech partners dropping the ball. I'm a huge fan of extreme ownership, which has always been a bright spot for me, which is this concept of you've just got to own it. Don't pass the buck. So what I did was I would get the answers, literally stay up all night, taking the data, scraping it, populating it by hand into what they needed, filling out all of these forms for the owners so that it was effortless. And I continually called, and I didn't let them know everything that was going on, but I over communicated with the city of Santa Monica about some of the delays and over used service and hospitality to make up for the shortcomings, knowing that people were about to respond and say, I don't get it, I filled it out, my dad is not there. And why I'm using this story is it something that I didn't have control over, which was the tech, which now we do, and we built our own tech. I went to something that I knew I always had control over, that was always a bright spot for me, which was you can show up with your own manual hours, you can do things manually, and you can communicate constantly with everybody to let them know that you're aware of what's going on and you really, really care and you're here to help. And just doing that in any situation, not avoiding the call, not hiding, but just literally jumping on the sword in front of it, helping solve it, and over communicating your appreciation absolutely won us so much more business and big contracts with Santa Monica and all these other companies afterwards. So to me, what we always have is our attention and focus and ability to show up for people in that moment. So I kind of am able to turn it to both the story and what you had talked about today, which I loved.
Oh, that's so good. I love the that you can always show up with your own manual hours. Like I think that is you can put in the elbow grease for it when you may not have the technology or the tools at hand. And so I do think that that's even something that could be cultivated across the board. Because I'd read one article about like Quicken Loans. They began to open up innovation to their employees to pour in ideas and other such. But it's the employees' elbow grease that's saying, hey, there's probably a solution out here that could be used. Here's what we're facing. Here's some ideas, what I'm doing. Anyway, so I do love that the manual hours side of things. Thank you so much for sharing. Go ahead.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for setting the topic. Great topic.
Awesome. Awesome. And Troy Hooper, I want to welcome you to the stage today. I was talking with my hands, so I didn't see when you actually popped in, but please introduce yourself. And if you need me to rephrase the question, I'd be happy to do that.
Hey, everybody. Troy Hooper, CEO, founder of Kiwi Restaurant Partners. We're a brand scaling consulting firm that helps emerging brands build out their infrastructure and scale their concept, traditionally through the franchise model. And in that vein, our largest client and insourced employer now is Hot Palate America, owner of Pepper Lunch Restaurants, where I'm the CEO. We have 516 restaurants in 15 countries. Good to see everybody. Glad to be back. Hope everybody had an awesome holiday weekend. Yeah, Elizabeth, rephrase the question, but then let one or two more people go. Come back to me at the end so I have a second to catch up and think of my story.
Yeah, totally, silly. So the question is about bright spots and about paying attention to unusual successes in business. Like maybe, and because you and I have talked about this before about user generated content, even where maybe a customer highlights things in a certain way, and instead of ignoring it as a brand, actually harnessing that and promoting and saying how can we fan this flame and recreate this and cause and make some positive like change happen. So it's the questions about finding bright spots and harnessing those. So I'm going to pass it on to Dean LeBay to share with us today.
Well, Elizabeth, I'm not sure. I'm kind of going to be like Jason, and when I thought about bright spots and so on, here's my take on it. Basically, it's all about mindset. It's about how you approach whatever it is that you're approaching with an attitude that it's going to be okay, everything's going to be all right. Now, there's been some things in my life where they were pretty dark, and I couldn't see a bright spot. I couldn't see a way out. It was like it was all spiraling down. But for me, the biggest bright spot I've had in the last 3 years has been this particular group. Um, I, I don't want to admit that, I was pretty down and out, and things were depressing, and it was bad. But Walchef um, invited me. I came, and I've been coming ever since. This is my bright spot. This is where I come to meet with my community, my tribe, because a lot of you I've met in person, but a lot of you I haven't. And the only way that I get better at this, the only way that I get better as a human being in the bright spot is to bring people along. And kind of like what Richard or like the gentleman was saying earlier, a rising tide does lift all ships. And as you lift others up, you lift yourself up. So for me, the bright side is there's opportunities around us all the time. It's just you got to be aware to be alive. You got to know that they're there, and you got to step out there and take your shot. And are you going to fail? Of course you are. But if you don't fail, that means you're not working it hard enough. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.
Oh, that was so good, Dean, because you saying that this room is your bright spot, you've done exactly what I was talking about, in that you have taken what you found as a bright spot and you have amplified it in every conversation that you have, in every post that you do. Like, you are like even just the testimony that like 2 or 3 of the people that had come in the room today came because Dean was shouting out where he found a bright spot. And so I think it's a perfect example, Dean, and I'm so grateful that you are here, and that every time you speak, I know that there's somebody in this room or on this podcast that is, it may be in a dark spot, just like what your dark place, like what you're talking about. And to hear you share how you've basically been resurrected out of the darkness and into light, and how you have carved out this new path. Anyway, I love hearing you. Please keep sharing it, because we feast off of it every single time you share your story. And so I'm so thankful that you're here with us. So thank you for that. So I'm going to hand things over to Richard today, if you wouldn't mind sharing your bright spots.
I'm going to share 2 stories with you. The first is a sports one, because I think sport and business is so reflective. And England are playing tonight. And if we beat the Netherlands, we go into the finals of the European Championships. And fingers crossed, England improve and can get the victory tonight. 3 years ago, we were in the same tournament, and Arsenal's player called Bukayo Saka plays for England, and his nickname's Starboy. And us Arsenal fans, we love Starboy. And it was the final against Italy. It went to a penalty shootout. And Bukayo Saka had his penalty saved, and Italy won the championship. Saka had been one of England's best players all the way through the tournament. He was in front of 90,000 people and millions watching at home, as England were bordering seconds away from their first championship since 1966. But Bukayo Saka was subjected to some of the most disgusting racist abuse you have ever seen. His confidence was shattered after missing the penalty. And when a country should have supported him, there were people in our society that battered him. The bright spot was that Saka stood up for what he believed in. And when he came back to the Arsenal team, they presented him with a wall of letters and support from fans from across the world. I was in the Arsenal stadium a few months later when Saka scored a penalty against one of our major rivals, Liverpool. He's now the Arsenal penalty taker. Every penalty he takes, you can feel the weight on his shoulders, but not for him. He turned that absolutely horrendous situation into an opportunity to learn how to be a better penalty taker, but also learn how to deal with stuff that no 19-year-old kid should ever have to deal with. Last weekend, England were in the quarterfinals. We were losing to Switzerland. Saka had not only scored the equaliser, but we went to penalty shootout. He absolutely nailed his penalty. He's a hero, not only to the Arsenal fans, but to the England team. And his wonder and joy just emanates from him. And out of that horrendous situation, he has just shown his real true qualities. And that's why we call him Starboy. And when you put the topic up, you made me think of Bukayo Saka. And you made me think about my life and what are the bright spots and that you talk about. And I did a post today about my ADHD, and it's one of those posts that I've been debating for weeks. And having been in this environment, in this space here, in digital hospitality, we talked about sharing personal stories, and I took a great deal of confidence and support from this community. And my journey with neurodiversity has had a huge effect on my business. My son, during the pandemic, unmasked, and I am a carer to him. And as part of that journey, I went on my own exploration and got diagnosed as ADHD. And sometimes my situation's very difficult. It's difficult to travel. It can be difficult to organize things. And either my wife or I, one of us has to be at home all of the time. And there are a lot of challenges around public perception of neurodiversity. There's an ignorance. We had a politician running for election in the UK that called autistic people vegetables. And that really hurts. And it's an incredible community. And there are many, many brilliant people within it. And out of this event that happened, it changed our lives. And I wrote about it in part for the first time today, and it was difficult. But what is really difficult is every day having to be a carer, a parent, and also run my own business. And the bright spot from it is I've learned who my son is, but I've also learned who I am. I've also learned how to be a better parent, but I've also learned how to be a better human. I've learned how better to understand people. I've learned how I can take some of the concepts from autism and bring it into my coaching and mentoring. I can talk about spoon theory, where we talk about how much energy people have. I can talk about glimmers and how we can bring sort of these terms that are kind of normal in the autistic community and use them from a coaching and mentoring perspective to help people with their own lives. So out of this most difficult situation, I hope today that I've made other people's journeys easier. I hope that all the things that I've learned over the last 3 years have made me a better person to my son and my community.
It was very, very good. And the even the article today that you wrote about the journey that you've been through and how now you're getting to do this these workshops through Oxford University about finding basically the bright spots in highlighting the wonderful things about autism and the superpowers, and stuff, but working with parents, etc. And so I know you hosted a workshop this last week with them, but I just think it's fascinating that it's amplifying, you're bringing more attention and help. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, yesterday was my birthday, and thank you to everyone for their greetings. Yesterday morning, I facilitated a workshop for Oxford Uni, and the lead doctor is an incredible person that is looking at how we can use something called strengths-based. And this is something that I'm going to share the link with you, Elizabeth, to pin to the group. And there's a basic idea that for every human being, there are 24 strengths, and it doesn't matter whether you live in an igloo, the rainforest, whether you live in the UK, or even South Carolina. Every human on the planet shares the same 24 strengths. And what this survey does is it asks you different questions, and it presents the strengths that you have, that you over-index in. So you'll have all 24, but some you'll over-index in. So for myself, I over-index in appreciation of beauty, creativity, gratitude, and resilience. And they're the things that I over-index in. And what it makes you do is think about how can you supersize these, but without mitigating the negative side of it. And doing this from an autistic perspective, we actually look at our children differently. We go, okay, so my son's really brave, he's really strong, he's a great team player. But having done that exercise for him, I've then done it for myself and learned so much more about myself. And I think what's really interesting is how you can take these learnings from one area and put it into another. So I'll share the link. It's a free survey anybody can do. And it really is a fascinating thing. And out of this situation that I would never choose, I've learned so much about myself and my family. And I just hope that, my story helps others.
It's brilliant. And guys, I'll put that link in a little bit in the event details of this particular event. You'll just go to the comments section and be able to find it. You can navigate to there by hitting the three dots at the top of the page and click view event details. It will take you to the event details and you can look through the comments there. It's not there yet because I have to do it while the next person's talking, but then you click the arrow at the top of the page. It brings you back to this room and be able to see all the wonderful, wonderful faces.
Hey, Elizabeth, I have a bright spot if I can jump in to bounce off of Richard's.
Please.
Yeah, I have an autistic boy, level 2-3, and it's been really hard to do things with him. And when he was really young, I had all these dreams of going to these events, going to the fair, doing all this really amazing stuff. And all those dreams were based on what I liked to do. They weren't based on what my boy enjoyed doing or was able to do. And it was stressing me out for the last couple years, trying to figure out like what I can do with my boy that he is comfortable with. I always think about this old book I read, old now, about 20 years ago. The guy that wrote High Fidelity has an autistic boy who was young then, grown up now, and he was nonverbal. And he wrote about in this book that in this collection of songs, I believe called Songbook, where it was a mixtape that this author put together, songs that meant something to him. And one of those songs was an old one, the dragon, Puff the Magic Dragon lives by the sea, that old song. And his son didn't respond to anything for so long. And one day that song came on, and his son just perked up in the way that people can magically do. And he just connected to that song, and it gave some life to him that the author, Nick Hornby, I believe, had never seen in his son. So about 10, 15, 20 years later, I am in this position, and I decided to try taking my boy to a movie. I used to love movies. I know Richard loves movies too. We've talked about it. And I wanted to share that, and I was willing to leave after 5 minutes. And what happened when I took my boy to a movie? We sat in the front row, and he stays the whole time. He doesn't scream. He doesn't say he's bored or in pain. He doesn't want to go to sleep. He wants to watch a movie. And the lights are off. He sits still. He eats popcorn. He doesn't eat at home. So these bright spots, you have to be willing to be open, find them, but they are there. So tonight, I'm taking my boy to the new Minions movie, and I expect it will be a great time. Of course, in the back of my mind, I'm always prepared to leave early. But if he wants to stay, I'm right there with him.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, I'm so thankful for that, and that just being able to pay attention and reform, how you approach it. Anyway, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Stover. I really appreciate it. I'm going to hand things over to Mandy Graziano today.
This is inspirational, man. I don't normally come on Wednesdays. I might have to change my standing call I have at 10 on Wednesdays to participate. You're lighting me up today. This brings up a lot for me. So I'm gonna share three quick things. And I'll land the plane fast. I promise, Jason. I'll follow in that. Or Troy. I don't know. One of you is always talking about landing the plane, but I think
Only
like,
when Troy's speaking, we ask
okay.
him to land the plane. You get all the time.
Oh, good. I'll
Yeah,
take all the
Jason has become as long-winded as me most recently. So
Ah,
sometimes I
oh,
feel like I want to tell him to land the plane, but I don't want to be rude.
oh my gosh, you guys should have a land the plane off. I'll be the judge. I'll bring a bell. I'll take all the runway that you'll give me. But just I think hearing Dean and hearing all the people that came to the room today because of Dean and interacting with Dean in this room and just in general, he is a bright spot. And I think all of you in this room are a bright spot. So I think my first challenge to everybody is be the bright spot. And if you aren't that like shiny, sparkly personality. That's fine. You don't have to be, but look for the bright spot, because you don't know when your ability to pick somebody up or lift somebody up or refer business to them or let them know, like Elizabeth in the beginning of the call, you were saying in the pre-show, you were feeling a little bit nervous, and I think it was Jordan was talking about hosting the show on Friday. Like, you don't know like what little thing that you can share that might truly catapult people into a place they never knew they could go. So my first thing is be the bright spot. Be like Dean, be the super connector, be the advocator, but be the bright spot. And in this room and in our community, think about how can you tag somebody here? How can you share something that somebody's going on? Richard, I can't wait to read your post and share that, right? I can't wait to be the bright spot of your post today. So that would be my first thing, is everybody's inspiring me and just reminding me to be the bright spot. So just thank you for that. And then the story I wanted to share about a bright spot in my business is an accidental bright spot that's been really awesome. I'm a professional speaker, and I speak mostly to sales teams and operators in the hospitality industry. I speak to sales teams outside of the hospitality industry, but I have my 4 or 5 topics that I talk about, and I niche down on them, which was really important. But last year, I had somebody from a software company find me on Instagram through a search. And she found me because I commented on a speaker that I had seen and became friends with. I commented on his Instagram. She liked my comment. And then she researched me and reached out to me and asked me if I could speak to her team of developers. And her team of developers and engineers, English was their second or even third language, but they were coming to a trade show in the United States and they hadn't taken their developers to a trade show before. And she asked me to help her developers to just be better in the trade show booth. So together we developed this coaching session, and it was a 70-minute virtual coaching session on you scanned the badge, now what? Because their issue was that, and we all have this, you're in a trade show booth, can I scan your badge? Yeah. And then you're like, how's your day? Which is a silly thing to do. So I created like these 3 great questions to ask after you scan the badge. And how do you handle that transition from scanning the badge, having the conversation, to actually booking a demo with the CEO or booking another appointment? Now, I've been in trade show booths my whole life, and I have my own personal protocols, but it never occurred to me as a part of my sales coaching process to create a training module for how do you behave in a trade show booth? How do you get the most out of the trade show booth? Like, scan the badge, then what? And because this random software person reached out to me, it helped me develop a brand new training session I had never done before. And now I use it all the time, and especially trade show season coming up in the fall. This is something I'm heavily marketing starting next month. So that is a bright spot, and it's helped me. My company's called FaceTime Coaching Company, and I really believe in the power of interacting with people face to face, and the trade show booth is like one of the greatest ways to do that. So because somebody asked me to do something, we created it together. Now it's a key staple of my coaching program. And so I think my lesson in that is, like, sometimes people come to you and they ask you, like, hey, can you do this? And, I try and keep it pretty finite with my niche. But in that moment, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in trying that. So I think, like, the message for me is, like, try something, experiment with things, and you never know when that might be a bright side for your business. You never know when that might be a lucrative bright side for your business. So try it, experiment with it if it doesn't cost you too much time, and be open to that being a development piece of your business that adds a potential new revenue stream.
That is such a great point. James and I were having this conversation this morning about paying attention to when processes you potentially could turn those into routines rather than recreating the wheel every time. And so I do love this idea of harnessing that and then talking through, okay, how can this be done better. It's something when Scott Turner's in the room, he talks a lot about thinking differently about those things. So I love that, Mandy.
Yeah, and I think when something works well like that, find a way to streamline it, scale it, and repurpose it over and over and over again. Because I think sometimes you think, oh God, I'm so tired of talking about that, or my people are sick of hearing me talk about that. But the reality is it may be new to somebody else. And if it works, if it's not broken, just keep rocking with it.
So good. So next on my list, as I pull to refresh, is Heather Cox. Feel free to introduce yourself, Heather. It's so good to see you. I feel like it's been years, and I know you've been super busy running around the world.
Thank you. I know. I like my schedule finally opened up. Hi everybody, Heather Cox Codes, social media manager and strategist, content creator for almost 15 years. I was listening to everybody's and I could go two different ways here. I think I'm going to go cuz I'm working on it right now. So I just finished my book. Yeah, I think I'm in like the fourth edit of just making sure links work and there's no dead links and stuff. But, I have been on the internet for a very long time. I have been on the internet since the MySpace days, the AOL chat room days, the AIM days. When you needed a disk to to go into AOL. You need, like we had this one computer in my parents' room, and
5.25 or 3.5.
yeah. So, for I don't even know how long ago that was, but I was on the internet since a very young age of sixth grade. And during that time, sixth, seventh, eighth, I did not realize it at the time, but I was being groomed by somebody in Canada. He was trying to get me to move to Canada and obviously didn't do that. But when I look back on it now, I'm like, holy crap, that happened to me. I didn't even realize it. And so I went through a lot as in a very young age on the internet. And that was a very dark spot. That was a dark thing that I had to go through, and I'm still learning from it and trying to heal from it. But the bright spot is that I went through it, which I know is a little weird, but now I have that experience and I can share that experience with others, and I can help them safeguard themselves and safeguard their kids, because education is power. And if parents are better educated about how to handle parental controls, help with screen time, educating their kids about bullying and harassment and being groomed online, then I think a lot of people and kids and parents won't have to go through that with their kid. So I created the book, The Connected Kid, which is basically 176 pages worth of parental controls, what tablets to use, what games are okay for kids, what type of there's also those apps where they can hide stuff on their phones. There's this fake calculator folder that literally they can hide things on their iPhone. How to set up an iPhone for your kid, how to set up parental controls and screen time. So, this book I've been working on it for a while. It's in its final stages. I'm super excited, but just using that experience that I went through as a kid and coupling that with my experience that I've had as a social media manager and strategist for almost 15 years, and having my husband's expertise in security and IT, I think this is going to be able to be a great guide and resource for parents who are trying to safeguard their kids online. So that's what I chose to do instead of just being, pissed or depressed or upset about what I went through. I decided to do something about it. And this book is a reflection of that. So, yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Heather, I'm super excited about your book because it's so necessary. I mean, I was even in conversations with a parent that's not a part of and her daughter, they found out she had been talking to someone online, and she's maybe 12 or 13 and super naive about the world and all this stuff, and just thought she was being polite and nice to this person. Oh my gosh, it's so scary. So it's really, really important that there's education that's clear and concise for parents to be able to use. So I'm super excited about this book, and I'm looking forward to getting it for my sister and my nieces because I'm like, I don't want this around. But I love
Thank you.
you took the bright spot, you turned it into a bright spot, and you're going to be able to amplify and help others be aware and ready. And it's awesome. So I want to thank Chris for joining us again, and feel free to go ahead and share, Chris.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much, because this really goes right down my alley. I love the bright spots that we have each and every single day in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll go back to what John C. Maxwell says in his great book and teachings, this very quote: nobody knows how much you know until they know how much you care. And the way we can find the very bright spots in and of itself is not only intentionally look for them, but embrace them when they actually show up to us. When we just allow that to be there, and again, make it about them and not about us, then it changes the whole dynamic in and of itself, that we can take, like you said, Elizabeth, about that one company who could have actually taken that and said, you know what, we could have used this to our advantage. But we, of course, get it then again, say, oh, no, you can't do that. That's not the right thing to do or anything like that. And we kind of let maybe even ego take the play into that. But if we are willing to let all that go, we can have the bright spots in our days every single day, because you know what? It comes down to one thing and one thing only: choice. And I truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, choice is the ultimate path to freedom. Or even the choice that we make can lead the pathway to the bright spot. And think about this. What if the bright spot in and of itself then becomes the story? And when you shared that story of that person creating that great design in that coffee, or creating that great opportunity by showcasing their skills by just, hey, they may not be a runway model, but they can do it at Target all day long. Embrace that. Take that as a net positive, not a net negative. Because again, if we help them get to where they want to go, by very definition, we'll get there with them and everything. And the bright spots, like I said, are all around us. We just got to recognize it. And I'll end this here, and I'd love to have a great and engaging conversation with you offline about this and so much more. Think about it also in this way. When we just allow those things to show up to us, we can even see the bright spots from this kind of paradigm of thought, that we want to have life happen for us and not to us. Even when it comes to an organizational dynamic, we want to have the bright spots in our organizations to be growing and flourishing, because we want it to happen, not because it has to happen and everything like that. Or if it does happen, again, we take that kind of dynamic and say, you know what, that's not the great thing today, so we'll just kind of pass that off and say that's a no-go because you're not allowed to do that or anything like that. Take it for what it is. Because again, I truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, the power of what if is truly powerful when we allow ourselves and also those very people to tap into that. Because you know what? That bright spot will not only be that one bright spot for today, but be a bright spot tomorrow, and be a bright spot next week, be a bright spot next month. And when you just create that, it creates momentum, it creates awesome opportunity, creates vision, it creates motion, it creates a mission literally in and of itself. It can literally even create a movement. And embrace that, ladies and gentlemen. And I have to land my plane here. So you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Make your day on this awesome day.
Thank you so much for sharing, Chris. And that word about caring, like, I think that is just care. Like, a lot of these things are foundation on paying attention, caring, and curiosity. So thank you so much for sharing.
Chris, did you say you were landing a plane?
I land any plane, anytime, anywhere, because you know what? When I not only land that plane, I will take off with more people.
Okay, I got it.
It is an old school, like, I'm finishing my sentence, I'm done talking on
all I know is in this community,
Keontae did
in this community, we've had people call from some crazy places. It wouldn't surprise me if someone was landing a plane while talking on this call.
That's awesome. So Troy, I want to hand it back to you. I hope you have a chance to respond.
Yeah, thank you. Racking my brain, I can't say that I've really experienced a super bright spot in the wild recently. But I'll say this about generating the environment to allow for bright spots to be created. If you have employees, you have to empower those employees, but you can empower your family, you can empower your friends, you can empower your colleagues, you can empower your clients, you can empower people with your actions first, do unto others as you would have done unto you. But I'll take it from the employee's perspective. You have to give people permission proactively, actively, out loud, conspicuously. You have to give people permission to be themselves, to be personality, to help mold what the culture of your company is, to help mold your consumers' experience. You got to give them guardrails. You got to give them guidelines. You got to explain to them what our values are and what our brand's about and what we're trying to accomplish and why we're here and why we do what we do. But you got to give them the room. And I think you got to give them examples. What is the surprise and delight opportunity? What are they empowered to do to resolve a conflict, a complaint, an issue? One of the worst things anybody can say is, hold on, I'll get my manager. Let me ask my manager. That means they're not empowered. That means they don't know what to do in the common scenarios of things that didn't go as expected or, hoped for by a customer or client. So you've got to empower. And again, I say not just for employees, but you've got to lead by example, give people tools, resources, encouragement, information, examples. I've told every employee that's ever worked with me a couple of things. One in particular is there's just about nothing you can trust your judgment. And if I would have wished you handled it a different way after the fact, then we'll talk about that and we'll be better prepared and we'll use that as an educational opportunity. You've just got to give people a chance. When somebody comes to you, when my son comes to me, when an employee comes to me, when a friend comes to me and says, hey, what would you do? How should I do this? What's the right answer here? How do you want this dealt with? I always start with, well, first, how do you think it should be handled? How do you think it should be done? What would your answer be? Because 99% of the, 90 plus percent of the time, they're going to get it right. And a big percentage of the time, some significant percentage of the time, they're going to say something you wouldn't have thought of. They're going to bring a perspective or an approach you may not have, used in your past. It may not be an experience. It may not be a perspective. You may be hearing the problem or the opportunity in a different way than they're hearing it, and they're really reading through the lines and seeing a better way to resolve or address or surprise or delight somebody. So that's the way I would talk about bright spots. Go out there and be a bright spot so that you encourage others to be one today too.
Troy, I thought what was really interesting was where you talked about creating an environment to allow bright spots to happen. And I think you can do that with like being creative, but also being really, really open-minded. And I think that little twist on that idea has made me think a great deal about how I can encourage my clients to do that, because so often I refer people to the great Peter Drucker that said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And if you can create a culture that nurtures bright spots, then people are not going to want to leave.
And it reminds me of it was a recent reel that Sean Walchef, our fearless leader, who I hope is getting rejuvenated, guys. When he gets back, he's gonna be rocket fire. I hope we're all ready for all the things that is poured into him on his vacation. But he just put out a reel with at Insta Flam. I think he's a chef as well. and their conversation was around this idea, Troy, of what you were talking about teaching your employees to mold customer experience. And I know there's probably a whole podcast around this, but even just this one clip where they were talking about teaching your employees to make genuine connections with your customers so that they are empowered to have those conversations. And I'll drop the link in the comment section from this post. But I did want to make sure, because TJ, I know you have joined us. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. But as I was thinking about people on the stage, TJ, when there's a bright spot in TJ's life, I feel like he writes a book about it. And that makes me so excited. Like some of these moments that he's harnessing, that he wants multiple people to be able to enjoy. And so TJ, you don't have to share about that necessarily, but I was thinking about how you do this so beautifully all the time. So I want to hand it to you.
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. That means a lot. Again, TJ Void, I'm a writer, author, part of the Cali Barbecue Media team, and I'll keep mine brief. Bright spots to me, I think. So I'm someone, which is sometimes people don't believe me when I say this, but I'm someone who struggles with depression, right? So I go, anybody who has been through any sort of depression or anything like that, they know it's never like a free and clear thing. It's a true intentional battle, right? So daily, sometimes it's minute to minute, moment to moment. But when it comes to bright spots, I think where I started to struggle with that was once I became more aware of things. Growing up how I grew up, I had to have a keen awareness of myself, of my surroundings, of my situations, probably beyond what my years should. And so my capacity grew quickly. And honestly, man, what people don't tell you about emotional intelligence, what people don't tell you about any sort of intellect that's beyond your years or skipping any steps in terms of your maturation, is that awareness can be lonely. Like it can be debilitating if you don't know where to place that awareness. So the now what, right? And so I had gotten to a place, man, probably about 3 years ago, where I'd written my first couple of books. I'd gotten out there. I had a following. You know, my first book sold like 250 copies. I was getting asked to speak places, all of these things. And then life, turned into life. And I just got so busy being busy that a lot of that stuff went by the wayside. And so, like, even my latest book, I haven't published like I should, just because, I've had to allocate my energy to a couple of different places here. However, what I've learned is that bright spots typically occur when you are the bright spot. So think of it like when you get a car. So you can have this car in your brain that you want, and you can never see it. And then the minute you go look at it and decide you're going to buy it, you see it every second. And it's not because the frequency has increased. It's just because your frequency has increased. So your vision for it, now that it's attainable, now you're actually keen to seeing it. And so if you want to see bright spots, then I would actually I've worked on being internally to having the perspective enough and tying back to that awareness enough to be aware of why I'm feeling how I'm feeling, the role that I played in feeling what I'm feeling, and then not taking that personally. And so now I can become a better bright spot, because there was a time where people constantly wanted to be around me, and then there was a time where no one wanted to be around me. So now I'm having to rebuild that and being a bright spot, not to a point that it's, unrealistic. It's just having the awareness, having the perspective to be a bright spot, I think attracts bright spots and allows you to see where those bright spots occur. So I'll leave with this. As a coach, I coached the number one team in the state. I've coached the worst team I've ever coached in my life in back-to-back years. And what I learned coming out of that second experience is that in both situations, I had to do the same thing. And that is redefine what a win is. So when we won a lot, the winning became mundane. And so day to day, how do we still have the expectation of winning when you're winning all the time? So now you have to figure out, how do we keep the practice of doing things the right way? How do we keep the practice of celebrating victories when victories are the norm? Because eventually you won't win. And then if you don't have the practice of still having the habits of winning, that loss can cost you more than any win can gain you. right? So that the 100, so to speak, like if you're taking a test, 100 don't help you as much as a 0 hurts you. And so just being able to have that practice. And then on the losing side, because winning was so rare and few and far between, we had to decide what winning was minute to minute, day to day. How do we stack wins when we know the result may not be a win? How do we still come out winning? And those are what the bright spots are. Thank you.
Oh, that was so good, TJ. I'm so glad that you shared with us, especially about the being what is the goal if, because the losing can cost you more. Anyway, that was fire. I enjoyed that very much. Thank you so much for sharing. So guys, we are past the hour, but we usually like to wrap things up with a tip, takeaway, or homework assignment. And so Stover, if you're available, flash your mic, and if not, that's totally fine because I know you're with kids. All right.
Hey,
Okay,
yes. Be on the lookout for the world you want, like TJ was saying and alluding to. If you want to be happier, find happiness. If you want people to be around you, maybe look inward and see. And I fall into this all the time where all of a sudden people are inviting you places and then they aren't. You realize maybe there's something I can do about myself, how I'm coming off to get back into the world in the way I want it to be. And I think we do have to keep our eyes, ears, and hearts open to find the world that we want to live in, because this is a big world. It is a confusing world, and there's a lot going on, and we have to create our own reality. So let's make it a positive, fruitful one about community and love. Thanks, everyone.
that was wonderful. Jason.
I loved your opening story about the doctor and finding, with the malnutrition. I'm going to look at that, think about that, and carry that over to, as we're about to dive deep into building a lot more content to help leaders and companies. I want to take that and transfer that application over because I don't know what I don't know yet. And there's some really cool things I think that can carry over in what we're about to build. So that's my takeaway and my homework.
Oh, I love that, Jason, especially like reverse engineering the story to be able to find the solution. Anyway, that's awesome.
100%.
Very, very cool. Over to you, Troy.
Oh, I gave my tip in my testimony, so I'll leave it at that. Look forward to seeing everybody on Friday.
Sounds great. TJ.
Yeah, so the latest book that I just wrote and the one that's coming later this year, they're both equally about those bright spots. So my fatherhood journey has taught me that it isn't the big thank yous, it's the everyday moments. Those little things that seem like they don't matter is where the relationship comes in. And then the second one, that I've talked about with Jason quite a bit is I Want to Be a Dinosaur, which was like the bright spot as kids, that imagination. And so when my son came to me when he was 2 years old and said he wanted to be a dinosaur, then it was important for me not to say, well, you can't be a dinosaur. Because now at 6.5, he has more random dinosaur facts in his brain than anybody I've ever seen. And he enjoys the idea of being a paleontologist. And so what I would say is when those bright spots appear, don't be so quick to look for the other shoe to drop. Just enjoy the bright spot, and then they'll become more apparent to you.
Oh, it's so good. So
By the
good.
way, I did write the song and I did rhyme paleontologist, which didn't sound cute. So we will have to reconnect because I'm revamping that. Because it's such a great to be a paleontologist. It's such a cool extension of what happened. So it's in there. And so just let you know, it's kind of funny. We'll
Awesome.
What time signature would that be with the word paleontologist, Jason?
ba, 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 da, da, bum. That's how the melody. 4 on the floor,
and all
man.
of those notes
4 on the floor.
bang.
We're going with kids. You go 4 on the floor.
Dean
It's hard to go after Jason, but anyway, I like what TJ was saying, and it's true. Positivity and bright spot is contagious. So you need to pass it on to the next person. So if you're having a bad day or not sure what to do, my tip is just say hi to 5 random people and make their day better. That way your day will be better yourself. Thanks.
Great tip. Richard.
Yeah, thank you to everyone for their stories. It's been very uplifting and inspiring in different ways. One of the reasons I keep turning up here, I think it's brilliant. My tip takeaway assignment is to watch England beat the Netherlands in 25 minutes and to connect with my son. Big thanks.
Fabulous. Mandy, Graziano.
Well, my personal homework assignment is to re-listen to this because I ran out of paper writing all of the quotes down. You guys all had amazing quotes, so I just want to re-listen because these quotes are really powerful. And then takeaway is just to remember, be the bright spot. Look for the bright spot. There is good everywhere. You just have to look for it. Thank you, Elizabeth, for an awesome room today.
Definitely. Over to you, Heather.
So if anybody who is interested in grabbing my book for free, I just would love if you guys just make sure the links work. And if anybody needs to set up any parental controls on like Xbox or PlayStation or their tablets or whatever, I'll give it to you for free. All I just want is a review and let me know if there's any mistakes in it. So shoot me a DM here on on LinkedIn or IG, and I'll get that over to you.
Awesome. That's I'm totally taking you up on that. That's incredible. So my tip takeaway homework assignment is one, I dropped the link to the quiz that Richard mentioned about the 24 strengths. I think that would be a super fun activity, even for like a date night type thing. We sit here, we'll take a quiz together and then go over it with each other. But if you hit the three dots at the top, go to view event details in the comments section, you're going to find some links to some of the conversations that we were having. We want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here in the Rising Tide LinkedIn room and on the Digital Hospitality Podcast. If you're listening to this in review, we are here every Wednesday and every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, having these wonderful conversations. And we want to thank our podcast audience because we know we've been getting a lot of re-listens when people can't join us. So we want to thank each and every one of you that join us. And anytime you see one of the podcasts being out there, feel free to share it and invite people to this room. We also have a group Instagram chat. And if you want to be a part of that, make sure you join that. And guys, there is a brand new LinkedIn group, Digital Hospitality Group here on LinkedIn. I will drop the link to that in the event details, but it's going to be a place where if you guys can share what you're working on, maybe to get eyeballs on a post that you're doing, but it's going to be another version of the Instagram group chat, but here on LinkedIn. So make sure you join the Digital Hospitality Group so that you can continue to connect with people here on the digital hospitality side of things. I want to thank my husband, James, for technically not being in the room, but listening in and recording while we're getting, by the way, there's breaking news. LinkedIn is going to allow recordings of live LinkedIn audio rooms. I'm not sure yet if you can pull that information from
No
LinkedIn.
downloads, I don't think. I don't think you
No
can
download.
Yeah.
So we still are going to be repurposing it the way that we are, but there will be a way for you to be able to re-listen to LinkedIn Live audio rooms. I don't know when that will start, but be looking for it. But thank you, Summer and Phyllis, Pete, and Richard for joining us, as well as Stover, Jason, Troy, TJ, Dean, Richard, Mandy, and Heather. And join us next time here on LinkedIn.